Okay, so greetings everyone, and welcome to the 56th session of the online Optom Learning series. Let me introduce to you our speaker for today. So today we have Dr. Thomas Arnold. I would address him as Dr. Tom if he doesn't mind. Dr. Tom is a graduate of the University of Houston College of Optometry, and during his training, he has participated in various outreach programs in Mexico and a lot of other countries, including one in the Indian Health Service. And also, he has spent 2 years as a research assistant for the Early Treatment Diabetic Retinopathy Study, ETDRS, at the University of Texas Medical School in Houston. He is a passionate scleral lens practitioner. He is passionate about fitting scleral lenses because of their ability to help patients who are struggling with compromised corneas. And what more than that, if you see him, his background also is an image of a scleral lens there. He is a fellow of the Scleral Lens Education Society, and is also an associate member of the International Society of Contact Lens Specialists. Dr. Arnold with Dr. Melissa are the co-chairs of the International Congress of Scleral Contacts, and it is the first meeting in the world which is dedicated solely to scleral contact lenses. He is also an international speaker and has presented in various countries including Russia, Poland, India, Jordan, South Africa, Colombia, Mexico, Italy, UK, Australia, and most of the major meetings in the US as well. Dr. Tom currently is a private group practice, is actually at a private group practice named the Memorial Eye Center in Sugar Land, Texas. And today he's going to share his tips and tricks on how do we go about doing anterior segment photography. So welcome Dr. Tom to our platform OOLS, and I would leave the screen time to you now.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Somewhere in Africa. So I do want to say that I didn't start out taking pictures as a photography enthusiast, even though I have really come a long way in this. I started taking pictures mainly to document the scleral lens process and the scleral lens fitting. But along the way, I have developed a passion for photography, and through the many travels I've done, I do try to document that. And scleral lenses have brought me so much joy in the world, enabled me to travel around the world and share this passion with everyone. And I'm certainly grateful for your invitation today and to be able to talk about some of the tips that we can offer in taking good photographs to increase your knowledge and success with specialty contact lenses. The famous American photographer Ansel Adams stated, "There's no rules for good photographs. There are only good photographs." And so maybe I'll help share some ideas with you. How do you make that better? So we see a variety of conditions in the office, and we certainly want to document that for our own learning, and also to share this with other doctors that we may seek their help, or maybe laboratories who be designing lenses for us. So just a few examples here. I've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of my pictures on the cover of Contact Lens Spectrum, as well as some other magazines. They have a column every month of clinical images, and they've been very generous, in putting my images up. And actually, there's a column in Spectrum called "What's the Diagnosis?" And I alternate with 3 other doctors, putting a picture up every month and giving you the opportunity to analyze it and share your thoughts, share your guesses about what it is. So you can look for that. So you can learn a lot from taking pictures, a lot about the fitting of your lenses and the conditions, some of your patients. And I'll share with some of these ideas with you here today. So these are just some pictures that we see. Those of you who are students may not have encountered scleral lenses yet, but if you haven't, this is the cornea here. The green band is the tear layer, the post-lens tear reservoir or fluid reservoir, stained with fluorescein, of course. And then the black band here on the right would be the contact lens itself. So, you know, we want to look at the clearance of these lenses. And so if you can take a good picture of it, it can help. Now, that shouldn't be there. So everybody here has a smartphone. I know you do. You probably have more than one. And a lot of these pictures that I'm showing you were taken with a smartphone. I started out with an iPhone 4. I recently bought my wife an iPhone 11, I think. So they've come a long way. But the cameras on most of these cellular phones, whether it's a Samsung or Nokia or Google or whatever, they're actually quite good, and you can take a lot of pictures. The trick is to stabilize the camera over the oculars of the slit lamp. So here's one example of what we call a bayonet style mounting that you would just affix to the ocular of your slit lamp, like you see there on the right. There are a variety of these instruments, like the one in the upper left, can accommodate a number of different sizes of phones. It's flexible. You can see the one in the bottom left. In the middle is one that has a spring type hinge, which you put the phone in, and it clamps to the ocular. On the bottom right, the iPhones are pretty much, cellular phones are pretty much taken away the need for these little digital cameras, but they still work very well. And if you look at this picture down the bottom right, you can see that is an attachment to the little Sony or Casio camera, whatever you have. And that attachment slips into the ocular of the slit lamp itself. Now that works very, very well. And then on the upper right, we'll take a couple other pictures of that here in a second. That is a Nidec or Marco unit, depending on what is distributed in your country, and attaches to the slit lamp. So again, an example here of something. This is called a Carson, I think, HD, and again, accommodates a variety of phones. This is a unit I got recently that I really, really like. It's called the phone dock. And again, you can see that it's a spring-loaded system, and so the phone just slips in there. You line up the ocular, and it attaches, again, with the clamp system. Works very well. On the right here, what that is, that's an auxiliary light source. And so that is nice to have to get a full illumination, of the eye and the adnexa, in addition to what you have in the slit lamp. So it's a nice little unit. It's called iPhone dock, and that's from the US, of course. This little unit, this Magic Eye, I've never actually used, but those of you who have been practicing a while may remember a ruby lens, which we used to use before we had the 90 diopter and 78 diopter condensing lenses. And that ruby lens fit down into a well right here in the swivel area, the pivot area between the oculars and the light source. And so you can remove a little plate there to get access to this little column, and this Magic Eye slips down in there, and you can see has an attachment for your phone and an auxiliary magnification. I haven't used this one, but it looks fairly simple, and I'm sure it's fairly inexpensive. So in the United States, we have something called HIPAA, which is the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. I'm sure you don't have this in some of your countries, but you might have some privacy laws that you have to be cognizant of. And so United States would call it HIPAA. So if you're going to take pictures with a smartphone, which I encourage you to do, if you can, buy a separate smartphone and use it only for this purpose, so it's not mixed with your personal information. When you take the pictures, you want to upload them to a server or another computer where you can analyze them and edit them if necessary. And I would create a separate folder for just those pictures. And then I create subfolders with the patient name. I also have subfolders of certain situations. So you might have a subfolder for keratoconus or corneal lenses or ortho-K or eye infections or whatever you want. But then I also have folders for the patient name, because I remember a lot of my patients and can access them that way. But keep it secure and keep it private so that you're not accused of disseminating private healthcare information. Now, this is a little unit we saw just a few slides ago, and it's a very, very interesting device. It fits, as you see, in between the objective and the oculars of the slit lamp. Most slit lamps have a little connection there that allows you to detach the oculars from the objective magnifying lenses. And in that space, you place this little unit, and the little black lever that you see flips the image between the oculars and the little iPhone that you see there. Being an iPhone, you have Bluetooth, and so the Bluetooth can be shared to another computer or to a screen, a TV screen that you have there in your office next to your exam lane, that you can take pictures and then show it to your patients. Why their eye hurts from an abrasion or iritis, or you can take a picture of the foreign body that you've just taken out. Really, anterior segment pictures are really, really good if you have a lot of blepharitis or Demodex. We have this in the United States. I'm not sure about in Asia, but we have a lot of the mites that infect the lids. And if you're trying to convince one of your patients to clean their lids, or the need for you to clean them, it's great to capture that and show them in a large image, and it gets their attention. But this unit's very easy to use. I say it's presbyopic friendly. You can see the gentleman there tilting his head back. But it doesn't interfere with the normal operations of the slit lamp. Takes really, really good pictures. And then you can share it, as I said, to a screen. This was a conference last year. This is my good friend, Michael Lipson, on the left. If you do a lot of ortho-K, you might know Michael. He certainly is an expert in that area. And we were at a conference, and this was a lab we were conducting. And I think we had about a dozen of these slit lamps with the little Marco instrument there. And so we could take turns sharing our images to a large screen at the end of the room. So it worked out really, really well. I don't work for Marco or Nidec. I don't have any financial interest in this, but it's a nice unit. All right, one thing I see a lot in amateur photography, even in magazines, is vignetting. And we're optometrists, so we know that vignetting means that we're cutting off the side, the periphery of the picture. So this is what I mean by vignetting. You take a picture and you see all this black around it, so it looks like you're looking down a tube or a straw. And what you want is the image more on the right. And the way you get that in a smartphone is when you look at the image that you see on the left, how we take our fingers and either spread them to enlarge the image or bring them together to make the image smaller. We do that to change the magnification on our screen face of our smartphone. Well, what you want to do when you take these pictures is you want to bring this up. It doesn't magnify the image, but it enables that image to fill the screen of your cellular phone, and therefore you get rid of all this vignetting. So it's kind of an amateur mistake not to do that. So easy to do. Change the magnification on the screen face before you take the picture. There's a variety of instruments that are either a portable slit lamp, like you see here, where you attach, you can attach an iPhone or an iPad to this portable slit lamp device, which has a magnification lens and a light source. And so if you work in a big clinic or a hospital setting, or perhaps a university setting, and you're using a variety of rooms, then you can just carry this with you and take pictures with your iPad. It also is available for the smaller iPhone. I don't know if it works for other other cameras other than the Apple cameras, but it's a neat little unit. A variation of that is a ring attachment that you put, and I'll show you this little video here. One of my assistants is just attaching it. So that way it's not a portable slit lamp. You're using the slit lamps you have, and all you have to do is buy this little adapter ring and put that on the ocular, and then that whole unit slips on there. So that works really, really well. And you have all the resources and all the bells and whistles that an iPad gives you. So that's also the iPhoto dock. And it takes some pretty good pictures, as you see. These are stock pictures. I didn't take them. So that's why you see the vignetting I was talking about. But you can see the difference what that vignetting makes. It'd be better pictures if they increase the image size. But that's a very, very good unit. There are also a number of photo apps. This is a screenshot of my iPhone. It was just some random pictures. These photo apps are free, and you can change the exposure, the lighting. You can take multiple pictures. It does a lot more than your standard camera settings in most smartphones. And so there's many of these available, and I'm sure you can find one that's compatible with whatever phone that you happen to be using. But it really, you can increase the quality of your picture, enhance the quality of your picture, I should say, right as you take the image. And that makes for a better picture in the long run, and you have to do less editing after you take the picture. All right, so slit lamp photography. So let's talk about that for a minute. After several years of taking photographs with my iPhone, I realized that this is something I wanted to do with virtually all my patients. And so I invested actually in a photo slit lamp. So if you're in the market for a slit lamp, you might consider spending a little bit more money and actually get something with an onboard camera on it. So in my case, the camera's connected directly to the computer via a USB cable. On my computer, on my PC, we're running real-time photo software. Now, there's a few tricks to this. Even though you're using both oculars and you're seeing binocularly the image, the camera is only seeing it monocularly and through the left ocular. So you use a gross focus by moving your slit lamp back and forth. The fine focus in the picture you're going to take is what you see on the computer screen. So you actually have to do kind of your gross focus through the ocular and then look away and look at your computer and then snap the image there. And this camera, there's a little button on the joystick, and you merely press the button. And it's easy to switch in these from video to photo mode and back by simply hitting a little button that's right down here. So if you're going to get a new slit lamp anyway, this might be a worthy investment. This is just a screenshot of the computer, and you can see all the little thumbnails that I've taken here. And what you can do is just kind of rapidly go through them. Any bad pictures, you can just delete there and save the others. And so these pictures then will be saved on a server to be accessed by a variety of computers in the office. So the initial image is on the local computer where the slit lamp is hooked up. And then once you save the images up to your server, any computer in the office can access those. So it makes life really, really easy. So there's the camera right there integrated in. Now let's talk about technique for a minute. And this applies to any camera, whether you're using a smartphone or the photo slit lamp. You want to dim the room lights, including the monitor there, so you don't get a reflection. For looking at scleral lenses, you want to angle your optical beam about 40 degrees, from the middle. You use white light when visualizing the fluid reservoir in a scleral lens that has fluorescein in it. And you want to use a magnification about 10 to 16x. Less than that, the image is too small, and more than that, it's very, very hard to focus. The only time I go higher than 16 is probably trying to look for signs of iritis, cells and flare in the anterior chamber, or if I'm trying to look at the endothelium. But that's a rarity. It's hard to focus at the higher magnification. So in my slit lamp, 10 to X16X, seems to work very well. And the other thing is just take a lot of pictures. Take a lot. In the digital age, it doesn't cost anything, and storage space is very, very cheap. So you take a lot of pictures because patients are moving, they're blinking, so they're not. Sometimes they're not as cooperative as we would like them to be. So take a lot of pictures and just discard the ones that don't come out well. Now, the other thing you can do, again, talking about looking at scleral lenses, is you switch the position of the oculars and the light source. So you center the light source over the cornea instead of 40 degrees to the side, and you swing the oculars to the other side. So that way you get both angles. So here you see now the light source is right in front of our patient here, who happens to be my lab manager. And now the oculars are over to one side, and that's how you flip it. You just reverse it. So it makes it pretty easy. Take some pretty good pictures like this Symphony multifocal IOL with retroillumination. I think it's a pretty interesting picture. Now, one thing when you take pictures of the whole adnexa, you want to get the eye and the lids and the conjunctiva, you need to diffuse the light source, right? In this slit lamp, you have a built-in diffuser, which is this little disc you see here on the right. And I don't see my mouse, but anyway, on the middle right of the picture, you see that little kind of frosted looking glass. You swing that over the light source, over the mirror, and that diffuses the image. On the left there, that little black tubular structure is an alternative light source that we use, and it has a rheostat. You notice at the top has a neural button with a little white dot there, and you can vary the intensity of the light. And you remember a few slides ago when we looked at the phone dock, it had an auxiliary light source. So here's one that's built right into the slit lamp, and that's very handy for diffusing the light. So you're not going to get an optic section, you're going to get an illumination, of the whole eye. Now, you can be pretty creative with this if you don't have a fancy slit lamp. If you have a what we call a Zeiss type slit lamp with the light source not in a column, then you can get a little plastic cup like you see on the left and just drop it over the light source. Or on the right, what that is, that's a daily disposable lens case, which you just take and use a paper clip to bayonet it. So easy, inexpensive. Some people will take a piece of tape, Scotch tape, frosted tape, and put over it, but then you have to deal with the residue of the glue on the mirror. So I'm not a fan of that. These are easy fixes. And there's just a little close up on it. The one on the left, the little cup, is for cold medicine, cough syrup. And so it's a pretty easy little fix. Now, we've really come to rely on the Ratten filter to enhance the cobalt blue light. They've been around for a long time, but we really didn't appreciate their use until recently when we started filling a lot of scleral lenses in Ortho-K. There are many, many types of Ratten filters. The most popular you'll find is a Ratten number 12, and that seems to be the right wavelength for maximum enhancement of the cobalt image. There's a few others you can use, but Ratten 12 seems to be the standard. If you're in the market for a topographer, ask about the built-in camera for the topographer. This happens to be an Oculus unit, a K5M, and a camera is an optional feature of it. Now, as you see, you get an entire image of the eye. You don't obviously have optic sections and can't do some of the things that we talked about earlier. However, they do have video capabilities. So you can look at how the lens moves at the blink and centers and so forth like that. Also good for tear breakup time. So some of these units, I think CSO, which is out of Italy, has a similar unit. Anyway, they're out there. So just keep in mind that some topographers actually have a camera, built into them. You always want to stay one step ahead, improve your practice, expand your capabilities, one step ahead, like this little fellow right down here. He's having a good time surfing that wake. Okay, well, let's talk about macro photography, true macro photography. Here you see a scleral lens that has a little bit of leakage on the top portion, and as the patient blinks, he's pumping in these little air bubbles, which we don't want. So that tells me that my scleral lens is not aligned properly in this vertical meridian, but you can really document it with some cool pictures. So in macro photography, you really do need to get a dedicated macro lens. And that's defined as a lens that has a focal length of 100 millimeters or more. I use a Canon because they're fairly affordable. There are a lot of different additions, accessories that you can get with the Canon, and I find them fairly easy to use. So a lot of the pictures that we're going to see here in a minute, and the pictures on the magazines, which we started off with, I've taken with this camera. This is a Canon 70D body, which is really an entry level. This is not super expensive. This whole unit that you see here would be about $2,800 US. So it is important to have a flash with this. You really need to put a lot of light on your subject, and that's what you see here. This is called a twin lamp flash. My good friend Ed Bayonet, who I learned a lot from. If you follow scleral lenses at all, you're probably familiar with Ed. He's taught me a lot about photography. This is his unit. Now he is more of a lifelong photographer than I am, and he uses Nikon, which of course everybody's familiar with. He has 4 flashes on his camera remote. So I have a little flash envy. I don't think that's available on my camera, but he has really good light. And his camera is 105 millimeters macro. And that's what you see right there. And the other thing you notice that's f/32, and the students are probably up on this, but if you've been out of school for a while, you may not remember that the higher the f-stop, the smaller the aperture. So f/32 is almost like a pinhole, whereas f/2.8 is a very, very wide image. So what's pinhole do? We all know that it gives us a larger depth of field. And to me, when I started, this was counterintuitive, because I'm thinking, what kind of depth of field is it? I'm right down on an eye. The height is not even a millimeter or 1 or 2 millimeters at most. But there's a lot of depth in that 1 or 2 millimeters. So you want the maximum f-stop, the maximum pinhole you can get. From any cameras there, that's f/32. Now, when you want to set, you're using a real camera now, and so you get to use some settings here. You want the image capture speed, which we used to call film speed, and now it's not film, but we still use that same terminology. And so this is the sensitivity of the camera to the image. In my camera, we start with about 400. A slow ISO, a very, very slow would be 60 maybe, or then 100 and 120. Very fast ones go up to 6,400 and so forth. The faster the film speed, the grainier the image would be. So faster is not necessarily better. You have to experiment with your own camera. It's going to be unique to your camera if you get one. But 400 is a good starting point. You may go a little faster, you may go a little slower, and just have to look at the quality of the image, in particular the graininess of the image. You set the image type to portrait. You want to manually focus this, but turn on your image stabilizer. You set the magnification of the lens, macro lens to maximum, okay, all the way up, and the focus zone would be a center spot. And what you do is you start back farther, you have your lens dialed to maximum, and then you move in, and I have a short video to show you. And you're focusing on the images, the light images from your flash. These flashes have what I call landing lights, which illuminate the subject, and then you take the flash, and of course the flash goes off. So you're looking at these landing lights on the reflected image of the eye, and you move in until those are clear. And when those are clear, you snap the picture. So if I look at the back of the camera, these are the settings that we just went through. RAW means that you're not compressing the images. It's not a JPEG. It's not a PNG or other thing. It is the full information, and you want that because if you do processing on the level of the camera, then you can't edit the photograph later. So you want RAW, which gives you the maximum information. Let's see here. This is manual focus. That's the portrait mode that we talked about. And then, well, let me go back a minute. And then C, if you look at the upper left, C means custom. So what you want to do is you dial in all these different values. You save it as a C in the dial settings. And then that way, if you use your camera for other photographs, if you use the automatic setting or the aperture priority setting and so forth, it doesn't mess this up. When you go to take your macro picture, you can merely go back and click to see, and all these settings are there. Okay, let's flip through those again. All right, there we go. Avoid ring flashes. You notice that my flash and Ed's flash were peripheral. This, as you see, slips right over. You don't want a ring flash. This was a $700 mistake on my part because that ring, that flash is right in the middle, of the image, and you don't want that. Okay, so this is how we do it. So that's a little idea of how you do it. The room light is important to have it be dark. So we take some pictures, and these are pictures, and you can see here you do see the image of the flash, but it's not like that big ring flash there. So I took all these pictures with the units that I just showed you here. This is Tyrion's marginal generation. This young girl is only 12 years old, and so we took all these little pictures here. That's a eye print lens, a molded lens over what we call a proud graft. You can see how it is very much extruded and flattened on the top. Christine Sent took this picture, and that's an eye print lens, again, a molded lens. I just thought it was a great picture, so I wanted to include it. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, I mentioned editing the photos. iPad has a great little editor called Photos that you can do a lot with. It's built in. It is okay to edit. Most of the time, what you're going to do is just crop the image, and you don't want to alter the colors too much, or it starts looking pretty unnatural. I don't know if any of you have seen this. This is a quiz question. Sometimes I give to my externs, my students. That's a mucin ball. So that's just a bunch of mucus that through the pumping action of the blinks and the eyes and the lens just rolled it up to a big old ball. So this is underneath the scleral lens in the fluid reservoir. The patient had no idea it was there. It wasn't blocking her vision or anything. But I thought that was pretty fun picture. And so these are some of the processing options you can do. You can see on the bottom of the screen, you can do different things to enhance the picture, but don't mess with it too much, or it'll really look unnatural. So this is one little program I use. It's free. You can see that it's it's approved for Apple and Google. It's called Mold Dive, and you can mark up things and do stuff like this with your image, write on it, put illustrations on it, and so forth. You can even use it to make a collage. You can have one picture of one picture with 4 or 5 different individual pictures in it, what we call a collage. So anyway, it works real well. It's free, and you can use it. All right, so we started off with Ansel Adams. We talked about his photographs, which are really quite famous, and he said that the single most important element of a camera is the 12 inches behind it. So think about it. Think about your picture, and I do want to leave you with this one thought. You can edit pictures for color, for sharp, color, and mark them up and do all sorts of stuff, but you can't focus the picture. Okay, the picture that you take will be focused in however you have taken the picture. So if it's out of focus, these editors won't help you. So it is really important when you're capturing these images to pay attention to the focus, the lighting, the exposure, even the color temperature can be altered, but you can't improve the focus of a blurry image. So, pay attention to that. Try to get the clearest shots that you can. Thank you for listening. A good motto from, the very famous physicist Stephen Hawking, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. So always keep an open mind, keep learning. You can never know too much. I tell people I learn something from every patient every day. So it's good inspiration. So anyway, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. I hope this was useful to you. Here's some of my personal information. That's my email. Melissa Barnett and I have a Facebook page, Squirrel Lens Practitioners. You have to answer some questions to join it, but we're happy to have you. I have an Instagram page, and coming soon, Dr. Barnett and I are starting a podcast series called Globalize. The first episode will be in September. And so we hope that you will watch your podcast feeds and look for Globalize as we speak to practitioners all over the world, just like I'm speaking to you today. So again, thanks a lot. That's me. And I guess, do I stop sharing?
Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tom, for that very insightful tips, what you have shared with us today. Yes, I was just saying that thank you very much for doing this. It was a very early morning for you. So
That's fine.
yeah. So we have a couple of questions. I'm just going to share that on the screen. The first question is, what's your advice? Should one invest in a slit lamp camera or devices that help us to use, the phone camera are equally good? So what's your advice? Should we really, if you're looking at a new slit lamp investment?
No, not necessarily. That's personal preference. You can take very, very good pictures with your smartphone. So you don't need a photo slit lamp to take superior pictures. If I think the most economical thing is, get a good cellular phone, find the attachment that works with that. And I would get a macro camera like where we ended the session with, because a macro camera like that, like I said, for me, it was about $2,800. And a photo slit lamp, my photo slit lamp was almost $20,000. So if you don't need a new slit lamp, I wouldn't necessarily invest in the photo slit lamp. You can take great pictures with your cell phone, and then spend the money on a macro camera. But if money is no object or you need a slit lamp, the camera option only adds a couple of $1,000s to it. So hope that helps.
Yeah. And I think the point which you mentioned really struck me, because if you use a phone, nowadays you have a smart TV everywhere, in your practice, probably you have a smart TV. And from the phone, you can connect it to a big TV where not only the patient can view it, but if there is any attendees, you can explain it on a bigger screen, and that would make your
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah. I think rather
Absolutely.
than that would be more apt in this situation, I guess. Yeah.
And I think, the little unit I showed you, the Marco Nidec unit, which you place in between the ocular and the objective, the little iPhone that was above, the eyepiece. I think that I don't remember the exact price of that, but I think it's $5,000 or $6,000. I don't think it's more than that. So that's a lot cheaper than a $20,000 full soot lamp. Now you have to contact that company, Marco Nidec, to see which soot lamps it's compatible with, but there's a good chance that it may be compatible with the soot lamp you already have, and so that's a real nice unit. I've used it, and that's a very easy to use. Yeah.
Okay. And the next question is asking about which universal phone adapter would you want to suggest? Is there any personal
No,
preference?
I don't have any personal preference. The very first one I showed you was very old, the Bayonet type. The one that says phone dock, which was the blue screen with remember I said it has the auxiliary light source to the side. That's really good. I think it's a couple $100 and fits most any phone. So that's a good one. It's called Phone Dock. It's from California. So that's a good one. But it depends on your camera, and it depends on your soot lamp. And all those are a lot of those are fairly inexpensive, like less than $100 or maybe $200 or $300 at most. Yeah.
Yeah. And one more. What technique do you want to usually use to see fluoresceins under the tear reservoir? I mean, you did mention about the angle 40, about 40 there. Would you like to elaborate more about that?
Well, sure. So that fluorescein gets in there. We put it in the bowl of the scleral lens, of course, so that when we're filling the bowl with saline, we dip a fluorescein strip in there, and we put up, we dip it repeatedly and really light it up. So I would use a lot of fluorescein, and then as I said, you're looking at it under white light to see the optic section. So no, it needs to be very bright. You have to have a good slit lamp, a slit lamp that really makes the light bright. But no, there's no real technique to that. When you want to see the entire eye at once, then that's when you put in your cobalt blue filter, and you can add a Ratin over the top, and that'll light up the whole thing. But for the optic section, you use white light.
What are the other settings other than the aspect ratio and brightness within the phone a practitioner must be aware of? Is that really necessary? I mean, you did share about the room brightness, try to minimize it. The screen brightness or the computer brightness, if you are using, should be minimized to avoid any reflections. But do you have any, anything which you should do in your phone particularly? Any settings you would do on your phone?
No, I can't. No, I really can't think of any. The little other than, remember I showed you some of the. I showed you a screenshot of a program to change the settings of your phone. The most useful thing about that is the exposure. So as you're looking at the picture, if you can adjust the exposure, that is very, very helpful. Exposure is different than the light settings of your slit lamp. So I think that would be useful. The other thing you can do, I think this is unique to iPhone. I don't know about Samsung's or some of the other Google phones, but you can, as you're looking in the photo mode of your iPhone, you touch the screen. There's a little box that appears, a little gold box, and you can use your fingers to make it bigger or make it smaller. that sets the focus. All right. And there's also next to that little box, there's a little slider, and that is an exposure setting. And I think if you tap it, it fixes the focal length or the focus of the lens. So that's built into an iPhone. So you want to zero in on where you want to focus, and you want to fix the focus there. So that's how you do that.
Okay. And I think that there are certain apps, like you have shared with us, the editing apps, which you normally prefer, but there are certain apps through which we can take the image, not only using the default camera app on the phone, but there are certain apps, specifically where you want to beautify the image and all that. So do you have any experience on those, and would you recommend using those specific capturing apps for taking the images?
Well, yeah, the one I showed you is the one I have on my phone. I forget what the name of it is. Let me look. I have it here. It's called Pro Camera. It's called Pro Camera. So this is what I showed you. Oh, look at that. It's called Pro Camera. And it has different settings here. It has exposure settings and all sorts of different things. So that's free. It's called Pro Camera. And then for photo editing, as I said, I just use what's in the iPad, or I use Moldive, MOLDIV.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and giving us these tips on how to take better images. I think people were taking images, but we probably were not that great. But with your tips, I think we will go back to our practice and then try to take better images now, so that it is used for not only for clinical purposes, but also for monitoring our patient's condition, as also for legal practices. Yeah,
that's how I started off, just to learn and to monitor, and it's very, very useful. And then it also helps when you have to give a lecture.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you very much again.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So just to be reminding our attendees, we are also in a plan of starting the online case presentation series. So we request, if you have any interesting cases to be presented, please visit our website. There is a link to submit your abstracts. You could go and submit your abstracts there, and we would get back to you and schedule your presentation. We do have sessions on the next weekend. Thank you very much for attending today's session. Thank you, Dr. Tom, once again for taking out the time early on a Sunday morning. I hope everyone stays safe. Okay, take care, and bye-bye.